Hello again. I am really excited about our next speaker. We were joking, we were going through the resource bank schedule back at Heritage, and we came across this particular session, and they said, oh, Genevieve, would you be interested in introducing Miles McPherson? I was like, are you kidding me? I was like so excited. And they're like, we've never seen you this excited to introduce anybody before. I'm like, well, not only is he a pastor, he's a former NFL football player. And my priorities are God, family, country, and football, but I will be honest, September through January every year, sometimes my priorities get a little bit out of whack, so I get very interested in the football side. Miles McPherson is a pastor now, but he did play in the NFL for the San Diego Chargers, and his second year playing football, he found himself hooked on drugs, and he really kind of hit rock bottom, and he called out to God, and God answered. Miles McPherson has never looked back. When he left his football career, he went on to study theology and went to divinity school, became a pastor, and he's now the pastor of the Rock Church in San Diego, which holds over 21 services every Sunday. I asked him if he preached at all 21. He said no, he's got some help with that. But 21 services, they reach over 50 million people with a gospel series that they do online. And Miles McPherson is not someone who just cares about the souls of individuals. He does, but he also cares about the soul of this country. And the whole issue of racial tension is something that's really weighed on his heart, but he has great hope. And he's here this morning to share with us the reason for that hope and to help us rise and renew in our commitment to engage with our fellow citizens and neighbors. And he's going to give us some really good practical solutions on how to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Pastor Miles McPherson.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? You blessed? Yes. Can I ask you to do me a favor? Can I ask everybody to stand up? And I heard the other day that sitting is the new smoking. So you're all smoking. If I can ask you all to turn your seats so your knees just face my arm. Just turn your seat so your knees face my arm, and so you don't have to turn your back and turn your neck. And then say to the person next to you as you sit down, I hope he doesn't ask us to do anything else in the next 40 minutes. Amen. It is a pleasure to be here. Genevieve, thank you for your introduction. I am from New York. I have two brothers and two sisters. I did have a dream to play in the NFL. I went to University of New Haven, Division III school in Connecticut, was drafted to the Los Angeles Rams in 1982. I got cut, which means I got fired, didn't get paid, and went and played for the San Diego Chargers. My first 2 years, I was doing cocaine, smoking marijuana, chasing women, running from women. Ended up in a crack house with a teammate of mine who was using crack, and that scared me out of that. And one morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I was laying on my bed, on my couch, had been doing cocaine all night. My heart was pounding out of my chest, and thought I was going to have a heart attack. And I gave my life to Christ, stopped doing cocaine that day, stopped smoking marijuana that day, got back with my girlfriend. We've been married 35 years and have 3 children and a grandson. Amen. Thank you very much. I have 2 brothers. One was a Heisman runner-up in 1987, played at Syracuse University, was a quarterback. Have another brother who's the 8th-ranked boxer, and have 2 sisters. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything athletically. They weren't athletes. And one day, about 15 years ago, my family, my 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and my 2 parents were standing around a table getting ready to pray. And my mom, who was all but 4'11", had 5 kids in 6 years, she started crying. And she said in her tears, this is all I ever wanted, was for her kids to be together, because we had spread all over the world and we're doing different things. When God looks at our country, he says, why can't we get along? I made every single one of you in my image, and I made you for the purpose of having a relationship with me. Why can't you get along? I want to talk about not only how we got divided, which I think a lot of us understand that, but I'm going to give a different twist on how we got divided. But more importantly, I have hope, because I am very hopeful that we can get together. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how we can, what practical things we can do to come together. Can I get amen? Amen. Can I get amen? Amen? Very good. Thank you very much. Can everybody say us? Say us. Say them. We live in an us versus them culture. And those are the 2 options everyone's given. Are you for the police or are you against the police? My son is a cop. My son is SWAT. My father was a cop for 30 years in New York. Thank you very much. And I did surveillance for NYPD with my dad because my dad was a cop, spying on cops. So I love the police, however, they're human. And you're either for this side of the aisle, that side of the aisle. You're for blacks or against blacks. You're for football players or against. And the culture always tries to divide us. And media makes money on us being divided. You're watching this network, or you're watching this network, and we feel trapped that we have to pick one of two options. Well, I wrote a book called The Third Option, that there's a third option, is that we honor what we have in common. So I want to talk about how we got divided, but more so how we can come together, things that we can do, right, even before you leave this room, to start building bridges with people that you have difference with. In Joshua chapter 5, there's a story when Joshua was leading the Israelites into the promised land. And as he's walking into the promised land, he's going to be confronted by the commander of the Lord's army. And he's going to ask the commander of the Lord's army, God himself, are you for us or them? Are you on my side or their side? And the commander of the Lord's army is going to tell him, there's a third option. If you read the story, it should be on the screen. It says, and it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and he looked, and behold, a man stood opposite him with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said, are you for us or our adversaries? Often, once you pick a side that you're on, whatever side of the debate or whatever the debate is, once you pick your side, the people on the other side sometimes by default become your adversary, when in fact they may not be your adversary. But because they believe something different or look different or live different, sometimes we assume or attribute them to be our adversary. So Joshua says, are you for our side or their side? Now understand this, Joshua is Jewish. He is going into the promised land that God promised Abraham. And he's asking God, are you on my side? And the commander of the Lord's army says something very interesting. He says to Joshua, no. Now I want you to imagine you ask your kids, you want a hot dog or a hamburger? And they say, no. I'm from New York, and in New York we're pretty straightforward people. Anybody here from New York, by the way? Thank you. Oh, okay, I figured you were from New York. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Where in New York are you from? Yeah, me and you are the loudest people in this room right now. I appreciate it. You're from New York. You ask a question, you get a yes or no answer. My kids are from California. I say, you want ice cream? And they'll go, sure. And I'm like, that means I'm eating it. You ain't getting none. It's either yes or no. Joshua says to the commander of the Lord's army, are you for us or them? And he goes, neither. There's a third option. Look what he says. He says, as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. And Joshua fell on his face and worshiped. There's a third option. If we all are only fighting for what's good for me, we are always going to have division. There is a third option, and is if we can place priceless value on everything we all share in common, which is way more things than we have that are different. I was in a prison once ministering, talking to the inmates, and I had just finished speaking on the yard. And this white supremacist was walking around the yard. He had his shirt off. He had two white supremacists behind him. They wouldn't stand next to him. And they were walking around the track around this big field. And you had all the black inmates over here, all the white inmates over here, all the Hispanic inmates over here. And he was walking around basically saying, here's what I represent. And so I felt like I'm going to go up and talk to him. So I went up to the perimeter where I can stand. And I called him over, and he got this close to me. And he said, what's up? And I said, I almost started laughing because even though he was a white supremacist, he had so much ink on his body, he was black. I said, bro, you're missing the whole point. You're supposed to be a white supremacist. You're blacker than me. But anyway, I said to him, yo, man, Jesus is looking for you. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. That's all I had to say to you. I ain't got nothing else to say to you. That dude is 99.5% genetically identical with me. That dude has a heart in the same place I have a heart. He has muscles in the same place I have muscles. He has the same passion to understand what his gifts and talents are. He and I are more similar than different. Now, we can focus on what's different, and we can focus on the lies that people put in our heads. But in reality, we are more similar than different. So what happened? There is sociologists say that we all group each other. They call it grouping. All of us are in multiple groups. Matter of fact, all the ladies in here say, hey. Okay, y'all don't know how to do that. Maybe I caught you off guard. All the ladies say, hey, nice, sweet voice. Thank you. One more time. Try it one more time. All the ladies say, hey. Very good. If you're a mother, say, hey. That's a tired hey, okay? You have ladies are a group, moms are a group, grandmoms are a group. Any grandmoms in here, raise your hand. Thank you, grandma. I'm a grandpa. God bless you. I got a 5-year-old. So you got ladies are a group. There's another group called mothers are a group. Grandmas are a group. Guys are a group. As a pastor, pastors are a group. Pastors of a mega church. We have 20,000 people in our church. I'm a pastor of a mega church. That's a group. And all of us are in multiple groups. The people in your group are called your in-group. Everyone say in-group. Say in-group. Anybody in any one of your groups is your in-group. People in your that are not in any one of your groups, that's your out-group. Say out-group. Now, once you define and identify your in-group, you understand the variations of your in-group. Now, I'm an athlete. I was in a hotel, and I saw this guy working out in the gym. I understood this guy was an athlete, not someone who works out. There's a difference between people who work out and true athletes. And so I'm looking at this guy saying he's an athlete, but he didn't play football because he didn't have football legs. Woo! You like football legs? I don't know who said that. Okay, it's cool. There was something wrong. I said that guy's he's an athlete, but there's something wrong. Not something wrong. There's something different. I've never seen those legs in one of our locker rooms. So I went up to him. I said, "Yo, man, I know you play something. What do you do?" He was a hockey player in the NHL. Now, I knew he was an athlete, but the reason his legs were different is because from skating, he developed the front of his legs. He doesn't run, so the back of his legs weren't as developed. I had seen that over and over and over again. I understood the intricacies of football players and athletes, but I don't understand hockey. So in my in-group, and whatever in-group you are in, you understand the variations of the people in your in-group. For all of you who are elected officials, you understand what it means to be an elected official. For all of you who are moms, you understand what it means to be a mom. So I spent the whole vacation with him talking about hockey. What we had in common was we had a season. We had an off season. We had a preseason. We had rehab. We had injury. But what I didn't know about hockey, matter of fact, all I know about hockey is that they play on ice. There's 5 black dudes that play, and they use a stick. That's it. So he taught me that there's actually 4 black dudes that play, but that's another story. But once you identify your in-group, you exercise in-group bias. In-group bias is your tendency to give preferential treatment to people who are like you, whether it be gender, whether it be occupation, whether it be social economic, or whether it be your skin. And there's a list of ways you give in-group bias. It is, number 1, I am more comfortable with those who are like me. I am more inclined to spend time socially with those who are like me. I am more patient with those who are like me. I give the benefit of the doubt quicker to those who are like me. I express more grace when mistakes are made by those who are like me. It's easier to communicate with those who are like me. I assume I will get along easier with those who are like me. I'm more willing to go out of my way to help those who are like me. And I possess more positive assumptions about those who are like me. When you walk into a room and you see people who are like you in whatever fashion, and there are people who are not like you in whatever fashion, you're going to feel more comfortable and express in-group bias, which is a list of those type of things naturally. We all do it naturally. We can't. It's a subconscious thing, and you feel more comfortable. If I walk in a room and there are football players over here, football player being God's sport, can I get an amen? Yes, all other sports is inferior to football. Just so you know. And there's a sport over here. I'm going to go to the football players and express in-group bias. We all do it by nature. And then it says the opposite is true. If I give in-group bias to people who are like me, what do I do with people who are not like me? I am less comfortable with those who are not like me. I am less inclined to spend time socially with those who are not like me. I am less patient with those who are not like me. I give the benefit of the doubt less to those who are not like me. I express less grace when mistakes are made by those who are not like me. It's more difficult to communicate with those who are not like me. I don't assume I will get along with those who are not like me. I am less willing to go out of my way to help those who are not like me, and I have less positive assumptions about those who are not like me. Less positive assumptions. That means you walk in a room and there's people not like you, and something we all do, we just don't assume the best. We automatically assume the best for people who are like us. I want to talk about how we can come together. This explains how we are divided. I grew up in New York. I have 4 grandparents from Jamaica, West Indies. I have a white grandmother who was sent from Jamaica, West Indies to Jamaica, Queens, so she wouldn't marry a black Jamaican. That wasn't going to work out. She finds a black Jamaican in Jamaica, Queens. My grandpa, this is my grandma and grandpa. They got married. When my grandpa would date my grandmother, he could not go in her front door of a house. He had to go around the back. When they got married, I grew up in Long Island, which is 15 minutes away from where her family lived, but we never knew that they existed because they cut her off when they got married. I have another grandmother who was half Chinese and half black in Jamaica. Beautiful woman right there. That's my grandma. Mr. Wong from China came to Jamaica and started messing around with some brown sugar. I'm just telling you like it is. I had my grandma. I grew up in a black neighborhood, went to school in a white neighborhood for the first 8 years of my life. I got called names in the white neighborhood because I wasn't white. I got called names in the black neighborhood because I wasn't black enough. I went to my house and had the United Nations in my house. We got along in my house. We got along in football teams. But my world was torn apart with racism on both sides of literally one street that divided 2 neighborhoods. And my whole life, I was struggling. How can we bring people together? Because I saw it work in my house. I saw it work on my football teams for 15 years. My brother saw it work on football teams for all the years he played. 6 things you can do. If you have a phone, you can take pictures of these slides. Number 1, acknowledge that you have a blind spot. A blind spot is where you are blind to something you don't know you're blind to. One of those blind spots is that you could be racially offensive and not be a racist. In all the years I've argued about this with people, I've realized that people cannot accept that they can actually say something and believe something that's offensive without necessarily being a racist. Often when someone tells you that you've offended them, you automatically assume that they're calling you a racist. By the way, some people do that, and that's wrong. However, if you can accept the fact and separate the 2 things, that 1, you can actually be racially offensive and not necessarily be a racist. Give yourself room and opportunity to learn, to say, listen, maybe this was wrong without having to assume the identity of being a racist in your heart. A racist in your heart is that you just hate somebody because the way they look, versus saying things out of ignorance or trying to be funny. I can't tell you, I'm a funny guy usually, and I have people come tell me some funny things that just aren't funny. It doesn't make them a racist. It may make them nervous, but it doesn't make them racist. That's a blind spot. Your social narrative is a story that has shaped how you see the world. It's a story that your parents told you about other people. It's a story that your neighborhood told you about other people. It's a story that your friends told you about other people. It caused you, it developed the prescription through which you see the world. It taught you who to trust, who not to trust, who's safe, who's not safe, who's intelligent, who's not intelligent. The problem is that we all have our own individual social narrative. 7 billion people have their own social narrative. My brother and I, my 2 brothers and I slept in the same room. The night of the first Exorcist movie, for all y'all who are old enough to remember Linda Blair's head going 360. We slept in the same bed, back to back, for a week. I said, Mark, you look at that side of the room, I'm gonna look at this side of the room. In the middle of the night, I elbowed him in the back, and I turned my head like Linda Blair. I tried to scare him. We lived in the same house, same room, same school, same block, climbed the same tree, yet we have a little variation on our social narrative. The way we all see the world was prescribed, and the glasses through which we see the world was prescribed by what we were told. The problem is it's very limited. There's a leadership coach in San Diego called Stephen Jones. He wrote an article called The Right Hand of Privilege. How many of y'all are right-handed? Just raise your hand if you're right-handed. Raise your hand up really high, elbow above the ear, please. Thank you very much. Keep your hand up just for 1 second. Look around the room. The world was made by you and for you. Can I get it? You're saying amen to that? See, that's right. You're raising your right hand. That's right. I'm right-handed. All the lefties, I'm lefty. All the lefties are special people. Thank you very much. Here's my in-group. This is my in-group. God bless y'all. God bless y'all. Say amen, lefties. Amen. 2 of us. The world was made by right-handed people for right-handed people. Remember when y'all went to school? The desk was right here. And you can write with your because your elbow is braced, you can write and talk to the girl next to you at the same time. Because your elbow was braced, because the desk was made for your right elbow because you were right-handed. Me, I'm left-handed. They didn't think about me. I'm out here writing like this. Say, hold on, girl, I gotta write my name. And I'm out here like this, getting the ink on my hand as I write. If you're a right-handed person, you go to any golf shop and get all your golf clubs first time. If you're left-handed, you got to go to 5 golf shops. There was no Amazon when I grew up. The only Amazon was in the river. That was the only Amazon that was around. But if you're right-handed, you go to any golf shop and get any golf club you want. If you're left-handed, you got to go to multiple golf shops. If you're right-handed, you can get a catcher's mitt at any sporting goods store. If you're left-handed, you may never find a catcher's mitt. Matter of fact, there has never been a left-handed catcher in the World Series ever. You may never find a catch. While you're home playing catch with your son, I'm driving store to store to store to store to store, and you're asking me, what's taking you so long? Because you don't understand the disadvantage I have of being left-handed. I shake hands with right-handed people. I'm left-handed. Every day, I got to accommodate to the right-handed person. Does it make the right-handed people bad? No. Does it make the right-handed people necessarily against left-handed people? Not at all. But it doesn't remove the disadvantage of the left-handed person. It doesn't remove the obstacles of the left-handed person, but it's something you just didn't know that even existed. It's called right privilege. I was talking about this one lady, and she said literally these words, you need to just get over it. And I said to her, you need to go someplace where you're the only white person and just spend the day. And I asked several people to do this, and I actually wrote this book called The Third Option, and this story's in here. And I said, when you go, I want you to answer these questions. What did you feel like when you were going on your way there? What did you feel like when you were there? How did people treat you? And my assistant, who's a white guy back there from Iowa, he went to a black barbershop. He's like, okay, and he wrote down all his testimony, and he still gets his hair cut at that black barbershop. But what happened was this lady she was always in her in-group. And when you were in your in-group all the time, experiencing in-group bias all the time, you don't understand the opposite, which is the out-group discrimination. When you're right-handed, everything's right-handed, you don't understand the left-hand experience. Acknowledge that there may be things that you don't know. Does it make you bad? No. But it also doesn't remove the truth. Number 2, rename those people as brother or sister. The greatest commandment in the Bible, Jesus says, love God with your heart, mind, and soul. And then he says the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Everyone say neighbor? Everyone say neighbor? Love your neighbor as yourself. Here's the problem. If we rename people something less than neighbor, we don't have to love them in our mind. In other words, when you put a label on someone that dehumanizes them or categorizes them or labels them less than neighbor, subconsciously you say, I don't need to love them. Not only do I not need to love them, it's okay for them to be treated less than I would want someone in my family to be treated. And we dehumanize them by giving them a different label, because when you label someone, you can't treat them outside that label. If you have a child and you call that child stupid, you will never see them to be smart. If you call them ugly, you will never see them to be beautiful. Your label actually puts limitations on how you can see them and treat them just by what you call them. Think of all the things we call people in culture. White this, black this, Mexican this, brown this, whatever it is. And every time you put that label and you dehumanize them, you limit how much you can love them, which is the very thing that we are supposed to do, versus saying, no, they are just like me in so many ways. There was a kid in the Bronx named Khalif. He was 16 years old. He's walking down the street, and he was arrested for being accused of stealing a backpack. Accused. They put him in Rikers Island prison. He was in Rikers Island prison for 1,000 days for being accused of stealing a backpack. There was no trial. He didn't have $3,000 bail, and he didn't have the backpack. He was just accused. Now, before I go any further in the story, how many of y'all raise your hand and say that is not right? Okay, it's okay, very good, fabulous. And he was in Rikers Island prison for 1,000 days. The guy who accused him never produced any evidence. They kept trying to get him to plea and say, well, I did it. And he said, I didn't do it. For 1,000 days, he held his integrity, tried to kill himself multiple times in the prison. He was getting beat up by inmates and guards, all on video. And they ended up letting him out after 1,000 days because the guy who accused him left the country and he had no trial. After he gets out of prison, he kills himself. He's dead. By show of hands, how many think that's really sad? Okay, very good. This is why the NFL players were kneeling. Now, I'm not asking you to agree with the kneeling, but I do want to help you understand the other perspective of what was going on. It had nothing to do with the flag. I know that was what you were told. It's not true. I know these guys. They were told actually by a Marine to kneel instead of sit, because they kneel in the Marines when they honor their fallen soldiers. The point is that we have things that another perspective, a way to see the world. And sometimes when we label people, we limit what we can even accept about those people. If you have Taz's picture, Jeremy. Taz is one of my former white supremacist friends, and Taz, that guy is as mean as he looks, is a teddy bear. Really, he's a really lovable guy. I actually interviewed him on a Sunday at our church. He goes to our church, and he often brings other white supremacists to our church. He's not a white supremacist anymore. I would trust him with everything I own. And actually, after I interviewed him on a Sunday, I said, I want everybody in here, when you see him on the street, I want you to go up to him and give him a hug. Give him a hug. That dude right there, guess what? His heart is in the same place my heart's at. When he got stabbed in a fight when he was in his gang, he had a black surgeon save his life. And as the black surgeon was taking tubes out of his body, his swastika-covered body, the black surgeon was asking him about his life. And Taz started saying, why do I hate this guy? Now he works for a black guy, which is ironic. That guy right there is my neighbor. Everybody is your neighbor. They said, Jesus, who's your neighbor? He told a story about the Good Samaritan. Can you imagine if every time you saw somebody, by the way, no matter what they believe, no matter what they look like, no matter what they said about you, that you would just say, that's my neighbor. If we could start there. Number 3, give in-group bias to your out-group. We all know how we treat our friends, but why can't we treat our enemies the same way? It's pretty basic. If all we're going to do is love people who are like us and people who we are friends with and people who are having stuff in common, anybody can do that. Any fool can do that. But it takes a real person of character and integrity to say, I'm going to give in-group bias to my out-group. So when I walk into a room and everybody looks like me and there's one person that doesn't look like me, or everybody's on my level with big churches and pastors and there's one pastor over there with a little church, I'm going to say, how do I show that guy the same bias, in-group bias, favoritism, preferential treatment, kindness, over-the-top, positive assumptions? How do I give the same treatment to that guy that I do that guy? And it goes the same with people who don't look like you, have nothing in common ethnically as you do. Number 4, acknowledge your brother and sister's color. I know that, I remember I was, 25, first time I heard someone say they didn't see my color. I thought they had eye stigmatism. I was like, man, that's messed up. You don't see blue, red, green. And they said, no, I don't see your color. I said, well, if you don't see color, how do you know I have a color that you shouldn't see? I'm confused. Your brain is a 3.5-pound computer. It processes millions of bits of information per second. Your brain has 2 extensions that pop out of your head, your eyes. Your eyes are a direct extension of your brain. So I want you to imagine your brain, squeeze it, and it goes, boop, it pops out of your head. Those are your eyes. Your eyes account for 90% of your brain activity. 10 million bits of information per second come through your eyes. 90% of your brain activity comes through your eyes. Your eyes process depth, shape, motion, light, intensity, texture, tone, and color. Your eyes can't not see color. Listen, something wrong with you. Even if you close your eyes, you will see black. You will always see color. And so this whole notion of not seeing color, can we move past that and can we just say, I see your color and I appreciate your color because your color is beautiful. Matter of fact, I was listening to Fred G. Sanford, the great philosopher from Sanford and Son. Watch this. How many of y'all don't know who Fred G. Sanford is? Oh, okay. Sanford and Son. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, Sanford and Son. Okay. Okay. You broke my heart, New York. Say it again. You are being honest. No, that's New York all the way. Fred G. Sanford got robbed in one of his shows, and the white cop and the black cop came over, and the white cop would talk, and then the black cop had to interpret what the white cop was saying, and they had to go back and forth. And Fred G. Sanford got robbed, and the white cop says, "Mr. Sanford, was the perpetrator colored?" And Fred G. Sanford said, "Yes, he was colored white." White's a color. Culture gives you two options: white, people of color. No, everybody's got color. Matter of fact, white people have sometimes more color. Listen, in the spring, you're white. You know where I'm going with this? In the summer, you turn brown. And when you get cold, you turn blue. And then when you get embarrassed, you turn red. So who's talking about people being colored? That's Fred G. Sanford right there. There was a white lady friend of mine. She had gone to Hawaii. She got a tan. And she was trying to get this guy to talk to her, and she had her little spaghetti strap tan, her spaghetti strap after laying 7 days in Hawaii in the sun. She's at work every day throwing her tan in his face. Boop, boop. He didn't call her up. So she's complaining to me like I can help her. It's amazing how we celebrate a tan we get in Hawaii. But if someone gets a tan in the womb, we invalidate it like it's not there. God made it all. And He is so good. It's all one color. It's all another shade of brown. You may think you're white. You're just a light shade brown. And when you lay out in the sun brings out the brown. Don't get it twisted. It's just the beauty of God. It's the creativity of God. That's all it is. And number 5, turn every conversation to a race consultation. What does that mean? Because you do see color, because we do hear accent, because we do see hair texture, we do see swag or a lack of swag. Do y'all know what swag is? Okay, I'm just joking. We understand what we think people are about. We have assumptions we put on people. In an instant, you can't stop it. It's subconscious. And by the way, it's not wrong. It just happens. What's wrong is when you assume that what you assume is fact versus suspending your assumption and having a race consultation, letting the person self-disclose to you who they are, what they believe, and what they're about. Last story. Give your heart to those who are not like you. Unless we put our heart into the well-being of other people, we're just talking. Rod Carew is a baseball player, Panamanian baseball player, played 18 years in the major leagues. Was an 18-year All-Star Rookie of the Year, MVP, 328 batting average. He had a heart condition, needed a heart transplant and a kidney transplant. At the same time, there was a white 27-year-old football player from the NFL, the best sport in the world. Conrad Rulin had a brain aneurysm, went into a coma, and died. He signed his organs to be donated, and his heart and kidney went to Rod Carew, a black Panamanian. When Conrad was 11 years old, he came home and told his mom, I met my hero, Rod Carew. I'm going to be a pro athlete. And he ended up going to the NFL. His heart and kidney went to Rod Carew. Conrad's mother calls up Rod Carew and says, Mr. Carew, I think you have my son's heart. And Rod Carew says, would you like to hear your son's heart? Come over to the house. She goes over his house and hears his heart. They're friends to this day, if we are so different. And if there's so many different classes of people, how is it this guy's heart and from one culture can go into this other man's body? I want to propose to you that if we exercise the third option and acknowledge that we are so much more similar and have so much more in common than we have in different, that we can change our country. And as I heard one of the speakers earlier today, you have so much power in this room. And my prayer is that God would reveal to you how you can apply this in your role in leading our country. Thank you very much.
You were terrific, sir.
Thank you.
We'll have a seat and we'll chat for a little bit.
Now the hard part, Genevieve.
Now the hard part, I'm going to get some really drilling questions. No, that was terrific. How many times have you spoken to an audience like this one where many of us, I would love to know what was your perception when you came in here knowing what you know about the resource bank and the kinds of folks who come to this, what kind of audience were you thinking this would be?
Like what it was, real quiet.
You got us out of that.
No, I've literally given this talk to all white audiences, all black audiences, all Hispanic audiences. I was telling you earlier, I think somewhere earlier, members of the Nation of Islam, from a public high school, pretty much identical content, and I get the similar response. I think we all understand that we're all made in the image of God, and we all understand that there's more. We can get along better, and it shouldn't be complicated. So I pretty much get a very warm welcome.
When you decided to write this book, what was the main reason? Was there a certain event, something that happened that caused you to pick it up and say, I want to write this?
You know, Martin Luther King died when I was 8, and since I was 8, I remember feeling it was unfair, and I remember thinking, what do we do? And having experienced a lot of discrimination all my life, and had so many discussions about racial issues all my life with people, I've always wanted to do something to move the needle and help people see, hey, these are great people. You know, because I had guys in my neighborhood who end up going to jail, and then guys in other neighborhoods would look at them and say they're thugs. I'm like, they're really nice guys. Like that guy on the screen, you know, he's a 2-strike felon. He's done a lot of bad things, but he is a great guy. I mean, just period. He's a great guy. And so in meeting a lot of people who had bad starts in life, one of the kids on my football team when I was a kid, 10 years old, both his parents were dead. I mean, how do you do that? And he didn't have a family. His brother was raising him, and they had no money. And so we were taking him to football practice and feed him, and yet people were calling him names. I'm like, well, you don't know this. And that guy, when he would see my dad, he would just like melt like a little kid. And so when you experience people on all sides of the tracks, you realize, you know, we're really the same. We just have bad information.
You talked at the top about how the media wants to drive people into different corners. When you look at the political landscape, where do you find hope in that in terms of bringing people together?
Do I find hope in politics?
Not in politics, but in the fact that people from different, whether you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, in the middle, wherever you are, having the ability to reach people that don't look like you but might share your beliefs, if you will, if we could talk past that. But politics seems to divide us into even areas where we look alike.
Politics, my hope is in the gospel, right? I think someone said it earlier, someone's going to talk tomorrow about if you could change culture, you don't need laws. I heard that comment, and it's so true. You can't legislate a heart change. However, laws can protect me from your evil heart, or you, not you, but you know, get what I'm saying? She's a sweet lady, I'm sorry. And so I hope that our hearts would change, and then we would come together politically. But here's the thing. Once you identify yourself as, this is my group, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, once you agree with your out group, the other party, you're a sellout. So when you watch TV, you know, and it's, you know, CNN and Fox, it's called like it is. Once you agree with the other side, you're a sellout. So even if something on the other side is right, you can't even agree because that's your out group. And so that's what we have to get past, is realize, wait a minute, and I understand the reality of that. That's why I don't want to get involved in that stuff, in the sense of being in politics formally. But that's the dilemma we have, that we got to come together and say, look, we want the same thing. Can we move past this invisible wall that forces me to disagree with you no matter what you say? And that's a tough order.
And it's, I mean, in your book, the third option, and by the way, following our session, you're going to be outside, I believe, we're going to have the book outside, and I'm sure you'd be happy to autograph a few copies if people would like that, so you can get it outside. But as you go through it, I mean, you give so many examples of what this looks like, and then practical steps of how people can do it. You really believe this is a one-to-one kind of thing. This isn't something that, like you said, you can pass laws and get done. This really is individuals talking to individuals.
Well, laws are necessary. We have to pass laws. I mean, you know, but they have to come from a place. We will shape a country that's honoring when quicker and more completely when our hearts are changed. And your heart can be changed simply by getting to know people. I had a prayer meeting in San Diego in a black neighborhood. I said, let's have it at this church. And there were pastors that were coming from outside of that neighborhood said, I've never been here before. And I'm like, so you will fly to Africa and Haiti, but you won't drive 5 minutes. You know, and churches are the worst. I say the worst. We're so segregated. My church is very diverse. We've always been that way, and it's a gift of God. However, 97% of churches are either white, black, and not even Hispanic, Mexican, Cuban, Puerto Rican. They're even that. And so so I said to these guys, look, you need to go down the street and meet people down the street. All of us, I don't know all of y'all, but I would assume you drive past neighborhoods that you don't go to. Go to them and just meet people. Because until you do that, that's your out group. You don't know. You have a blind spot. And you will never fill that blind spot through the news. It'll never happen through someone else's opinion because you surround yourself with people who reinforce your social narrative. You're around people who are like you. And if that's all you hear, you're blind to so much. I mean, you know, if I was laying in the street and someone drove by, I would think they would ask me why. You know, and when you see, I go back to NFL, whether you agree with them or not, I get it, but at least know why. At least factually why, not a rumor, not the party line, whatever party line it is. And until we get past that and realize, there's things I don't know about people. Let me go sit down and have lunch with somebody over a year.
Right.
Let me go see that family.
Because it's not a one-time thing. This is one of the things we talked about this at Heritage quite a bit. And the fact, and this happens, I would say, more on the conservative, maybe the Republican side of the aisle, is there's a tendency to go into neighborhoods or into certain groups and try to reach out, and it doesn't work. People don't respond immediately, so you don't go back.
Because they see it.
And you just think, well, you know, do we invest in something that's not going to eventually pay off? But the truth is, you got to keep showing up.
Yeah, relationship's not going to happen in 2 minutes. You have to be invested. That's why I was talking about put your heart into it. Other than that, it's not going to be received. And that's why sometimes people think, well, I tried. Well, what did you do? And it's not hard. I mean, I was walking to a high school, and this white guy was walking me, and it was a black and Hispanic high school, and he said, how do I act? I said, you just be yourself. I was going to talk. He wasn't going to talk. But I said, you just be yourself. And if you're yourself, even if you're goofy, they'll love you. Just be yourself. It's authenticity. That's what counts. And we had a great time. And so, yeah, if you really want to have policy that makes sense, go to those places and meet those people. There's a chapter here on culture. Every culture does the same thing differently. Every culture has weddings. Every culture enjoys food. Every culture raises their kids. They just do it different. And there's one of my pastors who was a salesman, an insurance salesman. He's 6'4", white guy. And he had a lower income neighborhood as his territory. And his colleague says, you can't go there. He said, well, those are my customers. I'm going to go. And he went. Brothers on the, drinking 40 ounce on the porch, and he's walking in there, tall, 6'4" white dude, and he says every house he went into, he would look for something that they had in common, like a kid with a baseball bat in a picture or a bicycle, and if he couldn't find anything, he would say, can I have a glass of water? And he would always walk out with food because everybody enjoys food, right? But what he realized is that we just do things different, but it's not bad, one's better or worse. It's just different. Why can't we learn from each other?
Well, we've learned a lot from you today. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me thank Pastor Miles McPherson. Thank you. It was awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, one of our co-laborers in the field is an organization called the Pacific Legal Foundation, and they have a video that we're going to show you a short clip of something's going on in the state of Connecticut. As many of you know, 1954, Brown versus Board of Education said we're not going to have separate but equal. But in Connecticut today, in some of their charter schools, in order to have diversity, they've mandated that every school must have at least 25% children in the school that are either white or Asian. And even if that means they keep 10 or 15 or 25 seats in that school empty, they won't allow African American or Hispanic children to come and take those seats because they've got to keep the ratio what they want, at least 25% white or Asian. Well, we think that's wrong. The Pacific Legal Foundation think that's wrong, but they don't just think it's wrong. The parents there whose children aren't able to get into those schools, in many cases that they live right across the street from, aren't able to get in those schools, and they've teamed up together. They put a documentary together on this. We're going to show you a clip of it. One of the ladies that you see in this film, Gwen, she's actually going to be on a panel tomorrow afternoon here at Resource Bank. So take a look at the screens.
In the fall of 1950, my father took me by the hand and we walked briskly to the all-white elementary school. He tried to enroll me and we were turned down.
I feel that I have not been given a justifiable reason for not being admitted.
Parents wanted their child to go to the school that was literally across the street from them. This is the same thing that's happening right here in Hartford right now.
My kids can't get into the magnet school. I'm like, what, is something wrong? Is there lead, asbestos? No, because they're black. They're saying we have racial quotas.
And the students don't have access to the school because they're the wrong color.
Left behind in these deteriorating schools, and they walk out of their homes and pass a school where there are empty seats.
The NAACP should be asking themselves, why didn't we answer the call of these children? PLF answered their call.
So you can learn more about that full documentary at Pacific Legal Foundation's website, and we appreciate their sponsorship here of Resource Bank as well.